Co, where the full interview is happening, and you. All right. Well, I don't know where the audio just awkwardly cuts off at the end there, but that's all right. Welcome everybody to GoGo Talks, brought to you by GoGoTix. If you're on Instagram, head on over to GOGOTix.co, where the full interview will be happening, and you can see Cherie's much more attractive face than mine. You can only see my ugly mug on Instagram, so make sure you head over to GoGoTix.co. And you'll enjoy what you're looking at much better, I promise you. GoGoTix.co. I'm putting it in the comments here, and I'm pinning it to the top. So if you're on Instagram, head on over now. And without any further ado, welcome to Sweet Cherie on keys. Hey, Cherie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
That's good. That's good. It's great to see you. I was just looking through our text messages and realized that the last time we saw each other was at NAMM, which I totally forgot about because you were out here. And so I had a picture with me, you, and Ryan that used to work for, or he's still at the casino, but he used to work for me at the casino. Now he's a big shot. His position is even higher than what mine was when I was there. So I gave you your career, buddy. But anyway, so thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to have some feminine energy on here. It's been mostly a male-dominated show, so thank you for that. So why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory in the music business, and yeah, take as long as you want. Well, I was originally telling people to give 2 to 3 minutes, and then everybody was giving these real short answers. So I want you to give us the whole spiel.
Yeah, well, I normally tell people just go to my bio, or just go on my website or something, because this could take forever. And so now I get permission to brag about myself because, you know, I'm pretty modest.
Yeah.
I'm really shy. But I mean, I started playing when I was 5 years old. You know, we always had a piano in the house. So my mom, she played a little bit piano, and then my grandmother, she played a little bit in church. And so they would show me some things. And then I took formal lessons around 5 or 6 years old. And then after that, I started playing songs off the radio that I liked. You know, I had a strong ear. Didn't know it at the time, but I could just listen to something on the radio and just pick it up. You know, I wouldn't consider myself as a prodigy or anything, but I could pick up some things, you know, by ear. And then I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. That was my high school, and that's when it really got intense. I started playing more advanced classical music, and I met other kids that could do what I do. Some even better. You know, I saw a lot of competition, you know, and I was very competitive. I always wanted to be the best. So I would practice and practice. So I always think that, you know, competition is good. You know, that's positive because it really pushes you and motivates you and inspires you to be your best.
Steel sharpens steel. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after Duke Ellington, I went to Oklahoma City University and continued my music.
What made you decide to go there?
Honestly, when I was in high school, I entered a beauty pageant, the Miss DC Teen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Miss DC Teen, and I won. And the only reason why I entered the pageant because one of the awards was you get some money, of course, and you win a trip to Hawaii. And you know, I'm in high school, and I'm like, wow, I want to go to Hawaii. Right. So you know, the beauty aspects and all that, I wasn't really into that. I just wanted that trip to Hawaii. Right. And you also win a scholarship, a 2-year scholarship to Oklahoma City University.
Wow.
And so I won, and my family and I, we went to Hawaii. I didn't win the nationals, which, I didn't care. I met some friends, and it was just a great opportunity, a great experience.
That's
And
all.
so when I went to Oklahoma, I met my best friend there, Kimberly Jackson. Got to give her a shout out because she'd be mad if I don't say anything. So,
Okay.
and then after that, I attended Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, down in Richmond. And the reason I went there was because I started really, really, really getting into jazz. Well, I was introduced to jazz at Ellington with Mr. Yarborough. He came in my junior year at Ellington, and he taught us jazz basics along with Tom Newman.
Okay.
And so back to VCU, I went there because I was told that Ellis Marcellus was teaching there. And I wanted to go there and really learn, like some technical jazz. And so once I got there, he retired. So I had to stay there because, when you're in college, you lose a lot of credits, from transferring. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in school forever. Normally you're in college for like 4 years. I was in school for 6 years because I kept transferring and, going through that process. And so,
I have a similar story. I went to Montana State because my father was a professor there, and they had in the classical guitar department like a program with Christopher Parkening, who's a famous classical guitar player. And as soon as I went there, they stopped doing the program as well. And then I also changed my major. I didn't transfer. Well, I did. I went to Montana State, then I went to Morgan, and then I went back to Montana State, and I changed my major a bunch of times because I realized I wanted to be more into the music business, and I wasn't trying to be a music teacher or really a performer or anything like that. And so the same thing happened to me where, it took forever. I never actually ended up getting my degree because I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to go do this. But anyway, it's just funny the similarities that we have in our story in respect to that. Yeah.
So after that, then I just said, well, I spent 2 years there, and it was cool. I met some friends and did some gigs, outside of class, and I learned a few things from Bob Hallahan. He's from Richmond, and I really learned a lot of jazz technique on the piano. So then after that, I just said, let me just come on back home. I went to Howard, and I finished there in 94. And, that was a great experience. I was glad to go there. I met a whole lot of musicians that you may know today. We were all in school together. And then after that, I just started playing locally, playing with a lot of jazz groups, did some agency bands, played, in every little small hole in the wall or whatever. Well, even at Howard, we were gigging too. It was a bookstore, Howard University bookstore. There was like a cafe in there, and we would play and jam in there. And there was a restaurant called Delights of the Gardens across the street. We would play there and make like $40 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then even at a Club U, they had jazz poetry was very popular back then, early 90s, where there's a speaker and everybody's in the backgrounds like this.
Yeah, the whole Love Jones movement and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we would play jazz and do that kind of stuff, for a little bit of money. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. And then after that, just from when you're gigging a lot, people, your name gets spread around. You have your business cards, and next thing you know, someone says, "Hey, I need you to play in my group." This is the artist talking, and so and so had referred me and said that you were great and blah blah blah. And next thing you know, you're on the road or you're doing shows with them. So I think like one of the first like major artists I can remember was a person like Gene Carn. I remember doing. Do you know who Gene Carn is?
I don't, but some people that are watching do.
He's kind of like Phyllis Hyman or Angela Bofield.
Okay. So specifically, how did that opportunity happen? Like, I mean, I know it was somebody said something to somebody, but do you remember the exact story?
I don't remember. No. I do remember. You may not know him, but Nathan Heathman. He's a Yeah, singer, pianist. He passed away about a few years ago, but you know, getting to know him and playing locally with him, and he was her MD. So a
Okay.
lot of the musicians here that played with him, you would, you know, most likely play with her. So
And for anybody that doesn't know, MD means music director or musical director. Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right. So I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. Go ahead. Then what happened?
So then I met a lady named Maisha Rashad, and I met her. And when I first time I saw her, I went to her house, and she had this big bush, big afro, and you know, had on some cute little jeans on, a little top, and she looked like Shaka Khan to me. You know, mind you, I'm just coming out of Howard. I had, a bun in my hair, a little ponytail. I was very college. I didn't have any, showmanship or sex appeal, nothing like that. But she was like a goddess to me. When I saw her, like, oh wow. So when I met her, we started doing a lot of jazz gigs together. She had her own band, Maisha Rashad, and we would play Tacoma Station. We would play at the Public Gardens, just different clubs around DC. And sometimes it was just duo. It was sometimes I would just play the piano and then she would sing. One of her favorite artists was Phyllis Hyman. So she would sing a lot of Phyllis Hyman songs, Shaka Khan. And we had a band, Walter Cosby, Jay Nichols, and different people from, just local musicians. If there's a gig, if you're available, you're there,
Right.
And I was always her piano player. She had other piano players before me. And if I'm too busy, there was a lot of piano players, a lot of jazz musicians around. So, but when I played with her for years, then all of a sudden she came up with the concept of the band playing 70s music, and which we already knew, but we took it to another level where we would dress up in 70s clothes with the afro wigs, pom afro puffs, and the bell bottoms and things like that. And so we just played some R&B covers and some, a lot of the 70s, and that was that thing. That was the gimmick,
Right.
And we got real popular, just playing around locally. And one day at Tacoma Station, I was sitting at the bar and talking to this guy, and we talking, eating chicken and drinking and stuff. And so I said, oh, I got to get back to my set. We're taking a break right now. I got to get back to my set. And he shook my hand and he was like, okay. I said, I'm Cherie. He said, okay, I'm Juju. I said, Juju? Oh, all this time I'm sitting there and I didn't even know that was him. I heard of him, from Sugar Bear and Doing the Bud.
Right.
And mind you, I didn't really get into go-go like that. As a kid, I heard go-go on the radio. I saw Doing it, but I, heard Tasty Love on the radio, Trouble Funk, Red Essence. I heard, I never been to a go-go before, so I never really knew who these go-go musicians or artists look like. I mean, we knew Sugar Bear because he was in the movie,
Right.
But a lot of the music I didn't really know. So when I sat at the bar, I was kind of embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, And so after that, he ended up being in the band, and we would play, and he would put his little pocket underneath it sometimes, and it just felt really different, it felt really cool. And next thing you know, she Maisha, she just dug it. She just loved his personality and his stage presence, his groove, his leadership and everything. So then maybe a few months later, I had missed this gig. Actually, they were playing at Bailey's, and that was a club. It used to be called TJ Remington's, I think. It was in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I may have been on the road with somebody. I missed the gig or something. And the other keyboard player who took my place, he called me. He said, yo, guess who played tonight on bass? I was like, who? Sugar Bear. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed it,
Right.
I missed the first gig that Sugar Bear played with. And I was like, oh my gosh. So after that, I had a chance to meet him. And then once Sugar Bear and Juju together, And then Junie, the singer from EU, he came into the band, but he came as a background singer.
Mm.
Excuse me. And he would sing all of the Earth, Wind, and Fire type songs, you know, where Maisha sang all the female songs, but he sang the male songs, the 70s. And it worked. I mean, we had so much fun. I mean, it, like I said, it was just a cool gimmick. It was just something different because back then, I wasn't really on the go-go scene, so I don't know how often go-go bands were working or, you know, how popular they were at that time. I mean, someone could, you know, probably, you know, challenge me with that because I wasn't really on that scene. I was basically on the jazz and R&B scene at that time. But I do know that we got so popular. I mean, we were gigging a lot. You know?
I came to see you guys probably 3 or 4 times at Tacoma Station. Like, but everybody was there by that time. There was Juju, Bear, and Junie were all there by that time because I remember I was still at Morgan State in Baltimore, and my roommate and I, we would drive every Thursday to come see Backyard at the Metro Club, and then we also came to see you guys. I think it was Sunday nights. I can't remember what the nights were, but at Tacoma Station. But we only came to see you guys about 3 or 4 times. But I was definitely blown away. It was awesome.
Yeah. We had some good times, and so yeah, and after that, we just got real popular, and then it really became like a legitimate go-go band.
Right.
And you know, people nowadays, you know, we say that was the beginning of the Grown and Sexy era.
Yeah.
That's what it was. We would take the cover songs, the R&B songs, and we had a pocket underneath it, and people just loved it, you know. And I met Funk and Benny in Maisha's band because they came. I guess the buzz was out, like, who is this Maisha and the Hip Huggers? And a lot of people thought that I was Maisha. You know, some people today, they still, hey, Maisha. I just say, hey, what's up? I just explain.
Right.
You know, people think Chuck's daughter. They say, oh, I'm so sorry about your father. And I'm thinking, KK think, you know, I'm Chuck's daughter. I just say, oh, it's all good. They go into their spiel and everything. I don't want to, you know, okay, all right. It doesn't bother me. But yeah. Like I said, I met Funk and Benny on the stage. They just came through one night, and they wanted to do Lock It and Cat in the Hat. I didn't really know those songs, you know, and I was like, oh, so there was some guy on the side. He kept provoking me like, it's this. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, can you give me some notes? Give me some chord changes or something? Like, what? What are you're bugging me, like what? You know,
I'm cracking up because I had, like, literally we have almost all the same experiences. I was playing with Solo, and we were playing at Club U, and Benny got up with us, and and this was like Solo was really Northeast Groovers, you know, repurposed at that time, and you know, we didn't know all of Benny, you know, we didn't know Cat in the Hat. Like, that was like 20 years before. And he was so pissed that we did not know Cat in the Hat. He's like, man, I mean, what's wrong with y'all? They don't know this. It's a classic. I was like, okay. All right, man. Rest in peace, Benny. But he was a little touchy that night. But that's funny, though. Yeah. Luckily, I didn't have anybody tell. Somebody was probably trying to tell the keyboard players what to do, but they weren't telling me. So that was good. But it's so funny, the similarities. Anyway, go ahead.
No, and I was getting angry because I'm trying to figure out what they're doing, and you keep bugging me. Unless you know how to play it, then fine, you can come and play it.
Right.
So, you know, I did my homework. You know, the musician that I am, I'm not going to be caught with my pants down the second time. You know what I mean? Right. I did my homework, did my research. I looked up, had some friends give me some tapes, you know. And I said, oh, this. So I learned those suckers. I learned those songs so that time when they come, I'm going to be prepared, you know, and then I'm going to put my own twist to it too, but I'm going to learn the song.
Right.
And, you know, glad I did, because I mean, those two songs just can't escape me. I still play those songs, you know, all the time, even when I play with Chuck, you know, and, you know, we do lectures, Teach the Beat, you know, we'll talk about that later, but you know, I still, people, when they think of a go-go song, they think of, you know, Lock It, you know, Cat in the Hat, doing the butt, songs that you just sardines and pork and beans.
Right.
So, so yeah. So after meeting Benny and Funk, and that was really cool. I mean, and then the crowd, it was just like, Tacoma Station has never been that packed before. I mean, we did just jazz performances. You're sitting down, people are eating. It's kind of like Blues Alley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to have it jumping like that, I mean, Mel, all of them at Tacoma Station, they were loving us.
They loved it, yeah.
They were loving it. And, after my Hip Huggers, it was Subtle, there was Listen, Vibe, and so on and so on and so on, Came the trend, and gosh, I mean, Maisha, she took ill, for a minute, and the band kept going, and we recorded Bounce, do the booty bounce.
Yep, I remember it.
So
who was singing when she was gone?
Me. But you know what? I didn't have to do a lot of singing. I just did bop bop. I would come up and I didn't have, and if there was like a popular song on the radio, like It's Love or, something like that, because I don't consider myself as a singer, but I can hold a note.
You sing, you can sing. You can sing.
So I can sing, but I'm not a singer, I'm not a singer. So, I held my own, and, I had fun with it. It was fun to me. So, I would get up in the front. I was like, hey, that's my moment. I love, Lil' Kim, or just and I was very young and thin back then. So, I had the energy, and that was fun. And, oh my gosh. What'd you say?
You're still young and thin.
Yeah.
So Maisha and the Hip Huggers turned, what came after that? Yeah, my man Brooks. Do you know Brooks, the guitar player? He plays for Reaction. He's a younger guy. But he just said, she lying, she can sing. Yeah, my man Brooks. He's out here now. He came down to visit me in Long Beach the other night, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, he said you can sing. So no more lying, Cherie. You can sing.
That, you know what? And that was Juju that pushed me to sing. He used to play his drums, and he would take his stick and poke me in my back. Like, get out there and sing. Get out there. I don't want to. I just want to play. I don't want to. I'm scared. And get out there. And he pushed me, and it felt good because, as piano players, we're always in the back. We're always behind the scenes. We don't really get noticed. It's always the singer or the horn player. They're in the front, the rapper. But, I was always accustomed to just accompanying people. And another thing is that I played for like the greatest singers in the world. I played for Patti LaBelle. I played for Chaka Khan. I played for Eric Benet.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Was that happening while you were doing it? Because I remember you said you might have missed the first Sugar Bear show because you were on the road with somebody. So was that what was happening when you were doing the Maisha and Hip Hugger thing, or was that after, or when was that?
During. I mean, I was a freelance musician.
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit. How did most of those things? So who have you played with? How did most of them happen?
I played with a lot of people. Shoot, I'm gonna have to look up my bio or something because I can't remember who. I say Chaka was
Chaka Khan.
Yeah. Pieces of a Dream. They're a jazz band out of Philly. Yep. I played with Stephanie Mills. I played with Eric Benet, Chrisette Michelle. I can't even remember.
No, that's fine. That's enough. That's enough. Well, I'm just asking that because I'm going to bring it back later when you finish your story to provide some context, because there's lessons to be learned from having experience in both of those situations. You know what I mean? And I want to get your insight on that. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure that we touched on that. So, Okay, so you're with Maisha and Hip Huggers. Tacoma Station is packed. Lil Benny was cussing at you because you didn't know Cat in the Hat, and you learned it. And then what happened after that?
As far as go or
Just in general, yeah. This is not. I mean, it's called Gogotalx, but it's really just about your whole thing. It's not just related to Gogo.
well, yeah, but while playing with Maisha, I played with different groups, and I was a freelance musician. So for
Mhm.
me at that time and at that age, it was all about who had the highest price,
Yep. Hmm.
and that's what I was, aiming towards was, if an artist calls, you're going to do it because it's an experience. You can
Hmm.
play at home all you want to, but when
Hmm.
an artist calls, like, oh wow, this is something you can put on your resume.
Yep. Yep.
You learn a lot being on the road. I always recommend that when you're in your 20s, your twinkling 20s, 30s, that's the touring ages. That's that bracket, because at that age, you don't really have a lot of responsibilities or bills, kids most sometimes, and you can have that opportunity and the time to, and the passion and desire to travel and do all those things without responsibilities. As
Hmm.
you get older in your 40s and 50s and so on and so on, it's a different perspective. You have a
Hmm.
family, you have a lot of things to think about in terms of, should I go on the road and make some money for this week, or should I stay home where it's consistent? You know what I mean?
What
So
was the how did you find the I know you're not going to remember the exact amounts and you probably don't want to say them even if you do, but for example, like was playing with Patti LaBelle, did you make twice the amount as you made paying with Maisha and the Hip Huggers, or was it 10 times the amount, or was it, roughly speaking, like how much more was it, or was it more at all to play with the bigger artists?
let me clear something up. When I played with Patti LaBelle, it was one time. I didn't play in her band.
Right.
Uh, I was playing with Nile Rodgers and Chic. And in addition to doing his show, and we traveled constantly, we
Hmm.
pretty much lived in Europe and Japan,
Yeah.
but also back up artists. And one of the artists that we did back up was Patti LaBelle, and it happened to be at Elton John's birthday party in
Gotcha.
London. So Elton John had a lot of friends, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists that we all know, and we obliged to back them up on a song or two. You know what I mean? Ross was there, so that was my opportunity with her. Now I was playing with Now Rodgers and Chic, and to answer your question, yes, the pay scale was 10 times more than what,
10 times. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
making. And when I played with Pieces of a Dream, for example, I don't mind sharing how much I made with them. They paid me $500,
Okay.
and we would play in New York. I could play in Atlanta. And if I went to Japan or Moscow, somewhere overseas, it could be higher. It could be 1,500, $2,000 for the whole week. It's in between, that's what the going rate was at that time for a lot of musicians that
Hmm.
went on the road. But I had to decide this weekend, should I go with Pieces of a Dream or should I stay here, and play? And, you know, I went on the road. Now, Pieces of a Dream, we didn't gig 7 days a week, but I played with them like maybe 4 times out of the month. If we went on a tour, it was like a whole week or two.
Hmm.
I had to figure it out, you know what I mean? And it was tough. It was very hard. And, making those decisions, it was very stressful because I wanted to play with both groups, but you can't
Yeah.
have it both ways because I'm learning now as a band leader that when my musicians want to go tour, I can't be mad because I
Right.
did it too. And it's all
Yeah.
coming back at me. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I can't be mad because you're in your 20s and you got to go on the road. You got to. You got to experience that, because you don't want to, just stay home and just work. And I'm saying that there's nothing wrong with that because some people are cool with being local cats
Yeah.
for whatever reasons. You know what I mean? I'm at the point right now in my life where I don't really want to tour all the time like that because I have kids now.
Yeah.
And I tried to that's the reason why I had to leave Nile Rodgers. I played with Nile for like 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried. I mean, I was big and pregnant, touring. our stylist, oh gosh, he's gonna be mad if I forget his name. But our stylist, he would make my clothes to fit me in my pregnancy because we had to be glamorous on stage.
Yeah.
You know, and we were all white at the time. Now Rogers, he wears different colors and they look fabulous. I called him last week and I said, oh yeah, I'm still, you know, following you and stalking you on Facebook to see what y'all are doing, you know, but we were still family, but we were all white and it was just, you know, dynamic. As a matter of fact, back to the Maisha thing, during one of her shows, I met Silver. You know Silver?
Yep. Silver Logan Sharp. Yep. Yep.
I met Silver because it was Maisha's birthday, and she invited Silver to come. Silver sat in on her show, sang a Shaka Khan song, and once again, I was like, "Oh my gosh, who is this?"
Right.
I'm used to seeing dynamic
presence too. Yeah, absolutely.
Her stage presence. She had that blonde braids just spinning around, and she was singing, and she was tall and skinny, and you know, and I was like, "Wow, who is that?" And so we became friends, and then she had a band, a local band, and I played with them called Shades, and I would play some nights with them. Like I said, I'm still a freelance musician. If anybody calls, I'm gigging, you know. If it's in the morning, afternoon, night, I had to figure it out, you know. So I played with her, and the next thing you know, she got me the gig with Now Rogers and She. So
okay, that's what I was going to ask was how that happened. So Silver, okay, because she was singing with him already, and so she got you. Okay, that's good to know. Well, I want to back up a little tiny bit, only because one of the things is the reason why I asked you about the pay, what the pay difference was, is because I talk to a lot of go-go musicians. I talk to a lot of, you know, just local artists. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to start the show, is because basically, like, these are just conversations that I have with people anyway. So I was like, I might as well put them on YouTube so people can learn something from it. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I notice in go-go is that, because I think that a lot of people in go, not a lot, but a decent amount of people in go-go have had that same experience that you've had. I went through a little bit of this. It's not really anything crazy. I don't want to make it seem like they were, you know, hard to work with or anything. But you know, RC and the Grits, who's Erica Badu's band, is my client. And so when you're dealing with a client that has their own project that is used to touring with someone of a much larger stature, it wasn't really that much of a problem with RC, but it has been with some other people that I've worked with. What's up, Chad? Head over to gogotix.co to watch the whole interview. There's an expectation that, well, I'm gonna go on tour, so I'm supposed to get paid all of this money to go on tour, because if you're looking at it from a hired musician standpoint, then yes, if you're working with an artist that's already established, that is making enough money to hire a band at that level, then yes, you are going to be making more money. However, if you're starting your own project, which is not affiliated with that artist, it's a whole different ball game. And I feel like there's a very large difference there. And there's a lot. The other reason I started this show was to try to talk to people like yourself that have had these experiences and are able to shed some light on a lot of the misconceptions that I feel like have come down throughout over the years in go-go. And because go-go has never really had a sustained movement of original artists that are touring, that are putting out albums that are, you know, hitting the Billboard. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm just saying on a sustained basis. Like, it's not like a hip hop or a rock or, you know, that another type of genre. Most of what happens in go-go is local. And that's the reason why too, is because you can make as much money playing locally as you can being a mid-level touring artist or whatever. But I wanted to point that out because I feel like it's very informative for people that are watching, because there is a lot of misconception about, you know, when I played with Backyard, when I filled in with them, I remember we went out of town somewhere and there was $50 more in my envelope. And Coop was still the manager at the time. And I was like, what's this for? And he's like, oh, that's your out of town fee. I was like, oh, thanks. I didn't know I wasn't expecting that because that's not normally a thing. You know what I mean? But it's become such a thing in go-go that I think that it's sort of it's sort of been a hindrance to the spread of it, because the misconception is so strong that if as soon as I step foot outside of the DMV, I'm supposed to get paid more. It doesn't work that way if it's your project. It might if you're working with, like, you're going on tour with Nile Rodgers or somebody that is already done the work and already put in the time to make themselves successful. So they have, but you haven't put in that work yet. You are not the artist that's successful. So there's a lot of conflagration between the hired musician model and the or professional musician model and the artist model, and those are two totally separate things. And one's not better than the other; they're just different. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a professional hired musician and playing for the highest bidder and playing for whoever is going to pay you. That it's 100% legitimate way to do it, but you can't transpose the strategy that it takes to do that on top of what it takes to become a successful artist that's, you know, successful around your own name, because they're two totally different strategies. So anyway, I didn't mean to interject for so long, but I just wanted to point that out.
You're absolutely right. I mean, when you play with an artist, yeah, you get a base pay, you get, you know, a certain amount. But when you put your own band together, it's like you have to start from scratch, because you don't know who you are. Have you sold any records? Can you sell out a house like, as you said, like Erykah Badu can? You know, it's all about numbers. So you have, I mean, even on a local sense, a long time ago, a few members of Dona had left the group and they formed their own group. And there was a venue that we played in on a weekly basis, and they wanted to play at that venue. So they told the owner that, hey, what is this? I mean, this amount. I mean, we're used to making this amount with Belladonna. And he says, you're not Belladonna.
Right.
I mean, it's, you made this with Belladonna. Belladonna, you know, we have
established,
and established ourselves to where we can get a certain amount. But when you put your own group together, you gotta start from scratch. That's just, you know, common sense.
Well, not but it's not though. That's the crazy thing. I mean, like you just told it. Obviously, it wasn't common sense to those ladies that left, and that's the thing that I'm saying. Like, to me and you, it is common sense. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this too, because there are some things that people that have worked on this professional level for so long, we just take for granted that everybody knows. And I mean, you only have to think about it for about 30 seconds to really figure out that nobody's going to pay you a crazy amount of money if you can't sell tickets. But it's literally the conversation that I have the most, and not even just in go-go, just independent artists in general. But it's definitely more prominent in go-go because there just seems to be this prevalent, and I think it's because most of the bigger personalities in go-go, not most of them, but a lot of the bigger personalities in go-go, some part of their personality and their stardom, I guess, if you want to use that term, comes from playing with bigger artists. And so their perspective is that, you know, I get paid this much to play with these artists. And so if they're telling other people that have no other, you know, maybe it's somebody that's, you know, a little lower down on the food chain from a musician standpoint, that don't have any other frame of reference, then somehow this misconception just spreads throughout the entire community that I get paid to play music. And you get paid to play music if you're a professional musician, and if you're a band, you get paid to play music if you're a wedding band or an agency band. If none of those things apply, then you don't get paid to play music, you get paid to sell tickets. And if you can't sell tickets, then you don't get paid. And that concept is really lost on a lot more people than it should be. And that's one of the things that I'm really, I mean, especially coming from, you know, I run a booking, I've been running my own booking agency for 2 years now, 3 years, almost 3 years now. And, you know, obviously before that, when I was still home, I ran the casino, you know, entertainment at the casino. And it's just really not common sense, and it should be. And I'm hoping that talking to people like you, that people will listen to people like you, more than they'll listen to me, and realize that that's not how it works.
Yeah, when I played with Pieces of a Dream, when I played with Now Rogers, I think with Now Rogers I got paid the most, and I would play with Nile, and then I would come back home and play with Chuck. Now, granted, Chuck paid the most in go-go, at that time. He would pay his musicians. If you played with Chuck, you're like, oh, that's the epitome. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But when I came home, I mean, I knew the difference. I knew playing with Now, money wise was going to be different from Chuck. And I never expected Chuck to pay me what I got paid with Now. It's two different groups. It's two different things.
Right,
However, I was working
selling this different amount of tickets. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And playing with the two were different, but when I came home, I was happy to play with Chuck. Even if he gave me a couple of $100 or something like that, and there was a gig, I would do it because I just loved playing with Chuck. It was a fun gig, and one is different from the other. And I accepted my pay from this person, and I accepted my pay for that person, and I'm cool with it. I never was big headed or felt like, shoot, I played with these people. Here's my resume. I deserve to get this.
Right.
Even when we started Dona, we were getting like, $75 a person. We had to start from the bottom. We opened up for a lot of go-go bands. And,
that's even good starting.
It's a progression, and you got to be patient, and you have to be resilient and diligent, and your time will come when you become that artist. Then you can basically, dictate what your pay scale should be,
Right.
But it's not going to just happen overnight,
Right. Well, so how did the Chuck Brown thing happen? How did that materialize?
I was playing with Sugar Bear, Maisha, and the Hip Huggers. But actually, Maisha she taken ill, and so once we did the Bounce and the Bop Bop, that CD, we really soared. It really took off for a few years, and during that, it was Sugar Bear's birthday at Club U, and jam packed in Club U, and he invited Chuck. And so Chuck was there, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Chuck. And I'm playing, and I already knew his songs because I grew up listening to his song. I knew Go-Go Swing, whatever he wanted to play, I got it because the musician that I am, I just learned songs off the radio. I just love to learn, play music. So he sat in and we played, and I was like, yeah. And actually, the sound guy that worked with Chuck, his name is Glenn Hendricks.
Yep.
He was Chuck's sound guy. He was always traveling with him. I think he tuned his guitars and stuff like that too. And he told Chuck about me. He's like, I guess Chuck was trying to find another keyboard player because at the time, Louis was auditioning for Amazing Frankie Beverly.
Louis Oxley.
And so then after that, Chuck gave me a phone call, and he was like, hey, I want you to play in my band. And nobody says no. I said yes.
No to Chuck, yeah.
Before we even talk business, I'm like, yes. My heart is like, oh, yeah. Because it's not even all about the money. It's about the prestige that comes with it, because everybody knows that Chuck is known for hiring exceptional musicians. It's like, he hires the best. And I know that he loves jazz. I love jazz. He played the blues. And so I just felt like this will be good for me. This will be easy. All I got to do is learn the arrangements,
Right.
And so he called me, and he said, how much Sugar Bear paying you? And I told him how much. And then when he gave me the figure, I was like, when you want me to start?
Yeah, I had Wiley on last week, and I was telling him about when Chuck stole a band from me. I had this artist that I was managing named David Corey, and my band was Ice, Quick, Marcus Young,
Uh,
and Anthony from that was playing guitar for Black Alley for a while with the long red hair, and that was my band. And all of a sudden, they kind of one by one came to me and were like,
one by
"Oh, we're not really going to be able to do this anymore because Chuck's giving us this amount of money." Bro, I was like, "You mother."
remember the order. It may have been Quick first, then Ice, then Marcus.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think.
remember who was.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
I,
remember.
I remember.
Yeah, yeah. I was so disappointed. But what are you gonna do? It's Chuck. I mean, how can you argue with that? So,
That's what
but
I'm saying. That's how I felt. As a band leader, and I have girls in my band that are still going on the road. Like Ariel, guitar player.
yep,
She
yep,
left
with Beyonce and
because when she first got in the band, I felt like I molded her because she played it. We played the same church, and she was just a little thing, just 17, 18 years old or something like that, trying to graduate from college and everything. And I was like, "No, girl, you gotta toss that hair around that guitar. You a rock star,
yeah,
girl.
yeah,
Shake
yeah.
that boot." But and she's doing it quite well now.
Yeah,
With
she's got it
Beyonce and
down. She's definitely got it down. I think I remember seeing her play with you guys early on when I first started bringing you guys up to the casino. But I still haven't met her yet because I think she started doing her thing after I moved out here. But yeah, no, she's definitely a showman.
yeah, we had another girl, Taylor. She was my next guitar player.
Hmm.
And same thing with her, just molding her and getting her, stage presence and stuff. And as soon as she gets it, Ari Lennox takes her. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. What is going on? Is there a radar to Belladonna? If you want to find a female musician, look at Belladonna on
Well,
YouTube. I bet
yeah.
they just
Absolutely, there is.
taking her.
But that's a good thing. I mean, it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing. But yeah, of course, why wouldn't they? Like you're the only, the premier, female band in DC, go-go or otherwise. So yeah, if somebody's looking at DC, yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%.
But like I said, I feel like, it's all coming back at me because I was doing the same thing, but I didn't realize it. I was leaving bands and finagling this and that, and even, Chuck, he fired me 2 times because I kept, missing gigs and going on the road.
Oh, really?
He fired me twice. I mean, the first time I was just shocked, like, oh my gosh, like you're gonna fire me, and I get it. When you have your product, your brand, and you're accustomed to playing a certain way, and your audience and promoters are accustomed to seeing this and that. And when it changes, it's like, okay, now you gotta get another person, a sub, you gotta rehearse them. Do they fit? The personality, the promoters are like, who is this? Who is that? So I get it. But when you're young, I mean, you have no choice but to just get out there in the world and do what you got to do.
Well, so that sort of leads me to my next question because obviously Belladonna was sort of the next thing. So, has that been your biggest challenge as a band leader? Because it's a little, and I, it's a little different when you go from just being a person in the band to being the person in charge and having to deal with all of the extra stuff. And it is perfectly illustrated by your story about the ladies that left. And there's a lot of musicians that just think that, opportunities just fall out of the sky because we're such great musicians and, things just magically happen. And, no matter whether I'm late or I didn't learn the song or whatever, the show's still going to go on. And, when you got the leadership cap on, you learn a lot of new things. So what's been the biggest challenge for you as the band leader?
It's challenging all the time because you're dealing with females and the estrogen, and it was challenging for me, not just for the girls per se, but the fact that I am a band leader now and I have to think of things in a different perspective. Where sometimes, even right now, I feel like, shucks, I'd rather just be, for hire. It's so much easier. It's less baggage. All I got to do for hire is to show up on time, show up dressed appropriately, learn my music, get my money, and go. I
Well, so
don't.
what are some of the things that you have to deal with now that you didn't have to deal with as a musician that are just in case I'm saying this because just in case there's a what I'm trying to do is make you and everybody like you's job a little easier so that if somebody that's watching right now that's a hired gun can listen to what the challenge that from you going from being a hired gun to running the show, knowing the challenges that you have to deal with, but you understand the other side of it too. Like what specifically is it that you have to do now that you didn't have to do then?
It's similar to being a parent, being a mother, because a lot of times I feel like I have to be, the mother figure. I have to make sure that everybody is treated equally. Like when you're a mother, you don't have favorites. They can tell if you have favorites. You have to balance the attention amongst everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I have to organize a lot of things. Make sure that everybody's on time. And if you're not, how do I discipline you? Sometimes that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Miss a show. The pay. How do you dock them? Things like that I have to worry about. It's like, wow, I'm in charge. And it's kind of like being a coach of a football team. The training aspect of the practice. You come to rehearsal and you don't know your music. The decisions you have to make. Should I just let you go on home? Be like, okay, bye, we got it. We don't need you. Should I fire you? Or should I just make you sit there and learn it in front of everybody? Okay, we got time. Come on, learn it.
It wastes everybody's time, yeah.
Right now, we're turning music on and learn. So it's a lot that you have to deal with as a band leader, opposed to being a side person. And you have to also set an example. I mean, I can't come to the shows and come to rehearsals late and just not caring, unprepared, And if I do, I have to make sure I have legitimate reason. It could be my kids or whatever. I have to make sure, because how can I tell you or enforce something and I don't even reciprocate?
Right,
I have to have leadership. I have to, set an example, lead by example. So, and to gain that respect as well, you gotta make sure that they all respect you. Now, Dona isn't the first band that I had MD'd. I MD'd other, but as far as with Dona, we're like sisters as well. And when you're family, sometimes it's kind of hard for me to just really be that bad person. Sometimes I feel, well, I'll use John. John is our manager. And if he can't handle something, I'll say, look, you the bad guy. You do it, because I still have to be friends with them too. When we're taking our bus trips, our road trips, and we're in the bus and we're having a good time, I don't ever want them to feel like, here comes Cherie,
Right.
And that's the way Chuck was. Chuck was very family oriented with us. So if by chance we did something wrong, sometimes you'll get that phone call, but you can tell it was hesitant. He'll say, "Oh, Cherie, you missed my practice." So, or he would have Tom come and be the bulldog and say, because Tom is very professional. He doesn't have any feelings towards anybody. He's just cut and dry. Like, this is the deal. Okay. So,
well, so how do
that's kind of the,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's pretty much, what sums it up.
So what did you notice, if anything? I mean, it's a little bit different. Oh, I'm sorry, you were cutting out for a second, so I thought you were done. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I suppose, but say it again.
Okay, I just was going to say, I mean, you played in most of the top level of go-go, so maybe you haven't experienced it as much, but I'm interested to know, in terms of, like things that you were just talking about, like rehearsal, like if you missed a practice, if you missed a show, if you didn't know your music, how are those things handled differently in, playing with Chic versus playing with Maisha and the Hip Huggers? Like, what's the difference? Because my experience has been that the way rehearsals and the way, just the level of professionalism in playing with a larger artist is significantly different than in the go-go community. And well, this is just go-go. So, well, yeah, that's why it's just go-go, because you're not treating it like it's more. So I'm interested to know, sort of from a brass tacks, perspective. Were there any, grave differences that you noticed between those two worlds?
Me personally, I always try to be professional on
Mm-hmm.
any type of level. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I mean, I've made some mistakes, things happen. But if you think of Cherie, people going to say, "Oh, she's professional. She'll be on time. She'll this." But I've been playing for like what 40 years or so. And it's like sometimes you're bound to have some
How you
mishaps.
been playing for 40 years and you're only 27 years old? How does that work?
When I say playing, I don't mean like really. I mean playing the piano, but
Right.
really being on the road and playing, it's probably been about 30.
Mm-hmm.
But playing with the hip huggers, just using that as example, hip huggers versus now Rogers. With hip huggers, we didn't really have structured rehearsals. If we rehearsed, we played so much that we didn't really have to rehearse. And if we did, sometimes people tend to be lackadaisical about it, the
Mm-hmm.
lateness we were talking about, or not practicing the new songs, and she would get irritated by that. We'll have some new songs, and when you perform them, you want them to be perfect. I always believe that rehearsal is not a place to learn the song. I
Right.
believe that you already learn the song prior, come prepared knowing the song, and we can work on the arrangement. Because if you can't work on arrangement and make it ready for stage if you don't know the song. Now, there are some times where we do have jam sessions where we just play whatever. That's cool. And there are some times when I might say during the middle of rehearsal, "Oh, y'all know this song? Hey, get your YouTube, get your iPad, and let's just learn this. It's real easy, only 4 chords. But what
Mm-hmm.
I mean is, if we have 5 songs that somebody emailed you to learn for rehearsal, you should have them prepared on any level. With the hip huggers or some local bands, they tend to be very lackadaisical. Some people feel they can just use their natural ability and just learn it on the fly, but it doesn't work for everybody like that. It just slows the process down,
Yep.
especially if you have to rehearse for only 2 hours. You may only have 1 hour, or you may have to pay for the rehearsal time.
Yeah.
As high musicians, think about what the band leader or manager has to do to get you to rehearse here, and then you just take it for granted.
Yep.
Now, when you're on the road, I bet you everybody is on time, they know their music, they don't treat it the same way. And I'm gonna tell you, my very first gig with Nile, we were supposed to go to Italy, and uh, I can't remember what time I was supposed to be there. Let's say I'm supposed to be at the airport like around 6. And around 2 o'clock, Silver is calling me, "Hey girl, what you doing?" And I'm in my pajamas. "Oh, I'm just doing some bills. I'm on my computer." "You're doing some bills?" "Well, I'm at the airport." "At the airport? Oh, today isn't. Wait a minute, I thought it was tomorrow." Oh my God. So I had to like get my bags and just throw things in there. And I'm just frantic. There's no way can I miss my first gig. No
Right.
way.
Right.
That's a no. I can't be late or anything. And the funny thing is that when I arrived, I made it on time, but her Silver's flight was delayed. So I ended up getting to New York before she
Oh
did.
wow.
It all worked out. Now didn't even know what I was going through. I mean, I was just frantic. And then when we get to Italy, my luggage is lost. I had no luggage. I'm like, we have to walk around and find some clothes. But all I like to say is that, the professionalism about it. Thank God she called, because I would have been in trouble and I would have been fired.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get a slap on the wrist. Here locally, if you miss a gig or if you're late, you get a slap on the wrist. But artists, mm-mm. And that's one of the things that we need to do here. We need to treat our gigs the way and respect it the way you would if it was a national artist.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do it, some people don't. I mean, I don't know how people run their camp, but I know with Dona, I try to use those tactics when I'm on the road and apply it to us, because I want to make us, a big artist. We played with Black Girls Rock and
Yep.
Beverly Bond. You heard of? Yep. And she loves us. So, anytime she called, we got her. We're on time. We're looking good. We back up artist that she has, at that time, and we get the job done. No problems, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right. So, what would you say are the top
What would
three
you
things
say?
you've learned from? I mean, it could be you could mix it up from Pops and Niles and whoever else. What would you say are the top three things you've learned from the people that you played with in terms of just success in life or music?
Say that again because my kids were disturbing me.
No problem. No
Say it
problem.
again.
What would you say are the top three things you've learned from all the people that you played with, whether it's Chuck or Niles or whoever?
Um,
Let me rephrase it a little bit. The top three things you've learned that can help a young musician or another musician that's watching this to do what they do better.
oh, well, for starters, always be on time.
Mm-hmm.
Always have a great attitude as well, because a lot of times you can be a phenomenal player but have the nastiest attitude and be real arrogant about it. But sometimes artists, they will choose the person that's less skilled, but they have a better personality. They're easy to get along with. See, a lot of times artists, they don't like dealing with drama. They don't want that in their camp, because when you're with an artist, you have to travel together a lot. Sometimes they invite you to their home. Now Rogers would invite me to his home all the time. I would spend nights there. We had shows in New York, and it was either, Cherie, do you want to get in the hotel, or you and Silver can crash at my crib, or we're gonna crash at your crib? Yeah, it's cool. It's your crib. Yeah, we'll do that. So you always got to have a good attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. I mean, who wants to be on the road with somebody that's just frowning all the time, or got attitude and just starting stuff all the time, and it's a bad look. The artist just does not want any drama. So you got to shape up that attitude. Got to be on time. Learn your music. Learn the parts. You can't just come in there, well, I'm just going to play whatever, or if it sounds like, no, because they will check you. And I've been checked sometimes, I thought it sounded like this or whatever, but, they said, no, what's that A you playing on? Chuck was famous for telling me when I first got in the band, he's a jazz musician. I don't want them jazz chords. I don't want those sharp 11s and 9s and 7s and stuff. I just want me to play the song. I said, I got you. And sometimes I have to ask the artist, how do you want me to play this? Do you want me to play it just like the record, just like the arrangement that you have? Because a lot of times artists will send you a live show. And when I come in, do you want me to learn it just like that show? Do you want me to put a little bit of me in it too? Mm-hmm. And sometimes artists, they have to figure it out at rehearsal. Sometimes, like I played with Karen White at the Bethesda Blues, and we rehearsed, and we learned her show the way the CD, the way the show was, but she changed it all because of how, like for instance, there was one song I just started noodling and playing around some chords, and she says, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that."
Oh, she changed it based upon your input. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So sometimes, artists, they get tired of the same routine. Sometimes they want to switch it up, and when you have rehearsals, you can switch up. But the bottom line, I had to know the song,
right,
and embellish it or do something different and put a little bit of me in it for her to like it. And then I played with artists like Stephanie Mills is like, I want you to play it just like this. Cool.
Nice. So what's the overall goal for Belladonna? What does success look like for Belladonna?
You know what? We want to be an artist because for such a long time, we've been together for 13 years, and to grow, first we had to develop our sound. We always have different personnel. We change members all the time for whatever reasons. That can just mess things up too, because once you get used to certain things, then it changes. I have to audition folks, especially the front line. Well, I don't know. It's just bad because even with the back line, it's not a lot of female musicians. who are great, you know.
I'm surprised you've been churning them out the way you have. I'm impressed.
It's tough. And when somebody leaves or whatever reasons, I'm like, oh gosh, and I got to start all over again. Because if this was a male group, I can call musicians anytime. Like, hey, you know, I need you. But with females, it's a lot to consider. You know, who they play. Do they look good? Because one thing I learned from Chuck, he would say, I got a good looking band. He wanted to make sure that all his players look good. And I'm the same with Dona. We don't have no umfufus in our band, you know.
Yeah, no, it's important.
And the band looks good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You can identify with one. If you don't like me, then you can look over there at Storm. You can look at Shannon. I mean, you know, we have a variety. But what were we saying?
No, I just was asking what the overall, what the objective was, and you said to be an artist. So
yeah, we've been performing locally and create a big name for ourselves. We backed up a lot of artists. You know, we've done that, and we still do that a little bit, but not as much, because back then we were, you know, coming together. We were excited and really pressed to do that because that was good for our resume. But we want to be an artist. We want to be Dona. We want to be on the marquee. And just before Corona hit, we were just in the studio. I kid you not, like days before this happened. We were writing a song, and we came up at rehearsal, and we went to the studio. Then next thing you know, I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was just the first day in the studio, which means that we still need to go in and edit parts for the players. If we were already at the second and third stage, we could just edit it in Logic and then just fix it. But we gotta, and we didn't even do the vocals yet. So
gotcha.
I don't know how this is going to pan out, what we're going to do. We're going to figure something out. But
yeah. Hey, yeah, it's tough for everybody. This has been definitely throwing everybody for a loop. But Cherie, I really want to thank you very much for coming on. Real quick, is there anything you want to tell people about that you got coming up or working on or anything? I know you have the bling bling crutches. You want to let everybody know about that?
Oh, yeah, that's going to take a whole new interview on itself, because of the reason behind the She Bling Blings. What happened? I had hip replacement surgery back in October.
Yep.
And I recovered now. It took me about 6 months to heal and to recover. But throughout that process, I had to use canes. I had to use crutches. I had to use a walker. Yep. And after maybe a few months, I wanted to get back to playing, because I took off for about a month or something. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get back to playing. But when I play, I didn't want to just look like an old lady just trying to be on stage and, you know.
Right.
Yeah, if I blinged it, I think the first time out was the Go-Go Awards, and I had blinged my my crutches, and everybody's like, woo, 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 woo. And so then people said, oh, you should sell them. And I was like, really? So I decided to bling crutches and bling canes. And I went on a Tom Joyner, not the Capital Jazz Cruise, Belladonna. We went on the Capital Jazz Cruise early this January, and I blinged my cane and had all the diamonds and jewels and flowers on it. And I got so much attention on that ship because it was a lot of senior citizens. I passed out so many business cards that, you know, it became a hit. So I'm like, oh, this is so cool, you know.
Where can people buy them?
You can, I don't have the website yet, but on Instagram, She Bling Blings, and it will direct you to a link where you can go to my Cash App, which is SheCranks.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry. I have to cut it short just because I have a guy coming to mount our TV, and my wife is like, he has to go. He has another appointment or whatever. So, but I just put it up. It's at She Bling Blings, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to get your blinged out crutches and canes, hit her up at She Bling Bling. Cherie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Anytime.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Mrs. I said, hey.
Will do. All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Please subscribe and click the bell icon so that you can get notified every time a new episode comes up. This week we're doing Tuesday through Friday, but next week, starting in June, it'll just be Wednesday through Friday. make sure, again, that you subscribe, click the bell icon. You can find more info on upcoming shows, etc. at gogotix.co. Also, make sure you get your t-shirt, your Gogo as Fuck t-shirt. And thank you guys very much for tuning in. And we'll see you tomorrow with Mr. Drew and Ant on the beat, talking about their bounce beat battle coming up. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.